Let's dive right into the Tyre Nichols case. Yes, the Tyre Nichols case. A story that hit very hard a few years ago and sparked a firestorm of outrage and calls for change to policing here in America. On January 7th, 2023, Tyre Nichols, a 29-year-old black man, was pulled over by Memphis police for what they saw was reckless driving. What followed was a brutal encounter with the 5 officers of the now disbanded Scorpion unit. Now, all of these brothers were black. They were all black. All these police officers were black, and they beat Nichols, this young man, Tyre Nichols, so severely that he died 3 days later. The body cam and surveillance footage released just a few weeks later showed a vicious attack. Punches, kicks, baton strikes, and just like we saw with George Floyd, Tyre Nichols died crying out for his mother. Just a few steps from her house. And so we saw people like Al Sharpton, and we saw so many different protests. And, you know, there is a reckoning that is still unfolding. So here's where we start unpacking it in a segment I like to call Cop Watch. We'll be right. Stay with me, folks.
Bad cops, bad cops. Bad cops, bad cops. Bad cops, bad cops. Bad cops, bad cops. Springfield cops are on the take. But what do you expect for the money we make? Whether in a car or on a horse, we don't mind using excessive force. Bad cops, bad cops. 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 Bad cops, bad cops.
Yep. The 3 former officers who were charged with murder in the fatal beating of Tyre Nichols, which triggered nationwide protests against police brutality, were acquitted. How that happened, I have no idea, but they were. They were acquitted by a state jury in Memphis, Tennessee. Tyre Nichols, as I stated in the intro, was beaten during a traffic stop in 2023. He died a few days after sustaining horrific blows to the head, according to a post-mortem report. Tadarius Bean, Demetrius Haley, and Justin Smith Jr., yeah, those are black names, were found not guilty on all charges on Wednesday, including second-degree murder, aggravated assault, aggravated kidnapping, official misconduct, and official oppression. All 3 have been convicted of separate federal charges and still face long prison sentences. Now, 2 of the other officers involved in the death of Mr. Nichols, Emmett Martin III and Desmond Mills, have both pleaded guilty to federal charges and have avoided trial. Federal charges are ones that violate federal laws that are enacted by Congress. So those are different than state laws. They are brought by the Department of Justice and usually carry very, very harsh sentences. These 5 officers, who were all black, were members of the Memphis Police Department Scorpion Task Force, which has since been disbanded. And, well, really, it was tasked with bringing down crime levels in the city because Memphis, let me tell you, Memphis is one of the most dangerous and violent cities in the country. They recently made news a few years ago when a rapper, I forget what his name was. What was his name? I'm looking at the brother right now. What was his name? Oh, not Sauce Walker. Young Dolph. That's his name. Young Dolph. Yes, Young Dolph was gunned down in like a bakery or something, and it was a nationwide story, and it actually started like I don't want to say a gang war, but it started sort of a war within Memphis, Tennessee. So Memphis is it's very active right now in Memphis, and this Scorpion Task Force was supposed to do something about that, I'm guessing. Now, video footage of this incident shows Mr. Nichols being pulled over by the police for alleged reckless driving. A scuffle started at this point, and the officers used pepper spray and a taser on Mr. Nichols as he broke free. Now, you used pepper spray, you used a taser, there's 5 of you. Why exactly did you have to beat him to death? This is what I'm asking. The 5 policemen caught up with him about a block away and began to assault him while he cried out for his mother. He died 3 days later with a post-mortem examination ruling it a homicide from all the blunt force trauma. What a horrific way to die. On Wednesday, the state jury took over 8 hours to reach their verdict following an emotional 9-day trial. The proceedings took place in Hamilton County, over 300 miles away from Memphis, after the judge ruled that the trial should take place outside of Memphis. Well, of course. Defense lawyers had argued that it would be difficult to find an impartial jury in the city. You think you're going to find an impartial jury anywhere in this country? I guess that's what their argument was, but Shelby County District Attorney Steve Mulroy told reporters that he and the Nichols family were disappointed and devastated by the verdict. He said, "I think we can understand why they'd be outraged by this result given the evidence. We respect the jury's decision, but obviously strongly disagree with it." I don't respect it. Like, he may say that. I'm just being real with you. I don't respect that decision at all. That decision was a piss poor decision. It really was. If you watch that video, they tortured that man. They brutalized. They beyond brutalized that man. He was broken, completely broken by the end of that video. And how this jury could see that and label those cops not guilty is beyond me. Civil rights attorney Benjamin Crump, who represented Tyre Nichols' family, issued a statement calling the verdict a devastating miscarriage of justice. Well, no bleep. The world watched as Tyre Nichols was beaten to death by those sworn to protect and serve. During the trial, the prosecutors had said that the officers had become overcome by the moment. Overcome by the moment. I want to ask you guys, have you ever seen black cops overcome by the moment and beaten a white man to death? I just want to know. Have you ever seen that? Have you ever seen black cops beating a white man to death? I know I haven't. I have never seen black cops surrounding a white dude, beating him half to death. So I guess they only become overcome by the moment when it's their own people. Or when it's somebody who they know they can get away with beating half to death. Now, the prosecutor, Paul Hagerman, said something I deeply disagree with. He said, "Nobody is going to call them monsters. It doesn't take monsters to kill a man." No, if you see the beating that they laid on Tyre Nichols, it was monstrous. It takes monsters to gang up and brutalize and batter somebody the way that they battered Tyre Nichols. That was absolutely monstrous. There is no other word for it. Ain't no other word for that but monstrous. The defense lawyers blamed Mr. Nichols for running from the officers and for resisting as they attempted to place him in handcuffs. Guess what? That's literally human nature. That's literally human nature. I hate to sound like a broken record here when it comes to talking about certain Western European countries, but there are some Western European countries where they don't even punish you for trying to escape from prison. You know why? Because they acknowledge that it is being free is in your nature. It is in your nature to not want to be in prison. Wanting to escape from somebody chasing you and trying to possibly do harm to you is not cause for you to lose your life. That's human nature. 5 people are chasing me and trying to beat the crap out of me. I should want to run from them. That's common sense, folks. I'm not saying cops shouldn't do their jobs. You know, this is something I fight with a lot of people on the left about. As a member of the left myself, you know, they just hate all cops and think that every police killing is unjustified. I'm not that person. I recognize every country has cops. We just talked about Burkina Faso last week. Hell, Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traore has just reformed policing in Burkina Faso. Cuba has police. Venezuela has police. China has police. I don't care if you're a communist, socialist, capitalist. Guess what? They all got police forces. And I'm sure if they are forced to, they will bleep you up, all of them. We know China will. We know, Cuba will under the right circumstances. Nobody's saying that, at least I'm not saying, that there's never any reason for police to use force in any way whatsoever. I would never make that argument. There are some circumstances in which, for the common good of society, it is important that the police use force. And every single police department on earth, again, doesn't matter whether the country's capitalist, communist, socialist, etc., will all say the same thing. They'll all do the same thing. But too much in this country, our police officers go above and beyond what is necessary just to constrain and arrest somebody. There's 5 of you. And I looked at Tyre Nichols. He wasn't 8 feet tall and 500 pounds. He's a regular sized guy. There's 5 of you. It shouldn't take beating the man to death in order to arrest him. Now, the verdict in state trial comes in contrast to the defendant's federal trial in 2024, where the officers were found guilty of witness tampering charges in that case. Demetrius Haley, was also found guilty of deprivation of civil rights and deliberate indifference resulting in serious bodily injury. Bean and Smith both faced 20 years in jail, while Haley faces a life sentence in their federal trial. So the state has let us down. State charges have the state courts have shown once again that they will allow the police to completely destroy and brutalize black bodies at their leisure. Now, the hope is that Donald Trump's Department of Justice will do their thing and actually get some justice for Tyree Smith and his family. Now, federal sentencing hearings have been delayed until the conclusion of the state trial. But in 2024, the U.S. Justice Department found that the Memphis Police Department regularly used excessive force against black residents. So this is a epidemic in the city of Memphis, and really a pandemic across America, as we've seen with Rodney King, with Sean Bell, with Abner Louima, where the New York Police Department sodomized him with a plunger, with Amadou Diallo, who was shot 41 times trying to give his wallet to the New York Police Department. To Michael Brown, to George Floyd, and all these other people. This is the real pandemic. And it is so poignant that all these police officers were black, because it just goes to show you what anybody who watched Boys from the Hood, the great movie by John Singleton that starred Ice Cube and Cuba Gooding Jr. and Morris Chestnut, the most racist cop against black people in that whole movie was the black cop. The officer who was most overzealous to uphold white supremacy and racism against his own people was the black cop. And we see this now with black police officers all the time. And like I said, I'm not anti-police. I'm not one of those leftists who just hate all police officers. Like I said, all the countries, all those socialist and communist and social democratic countries, they all got police too. The police ain't going nowhere. I've always thought it's super immature for a lot of people on the left to all cops are bastards and we're going to get rid of the police. You're not getting rid of the police. The police are never going anywhere. We as black people, we as people on the left, if you are on the left or whether you're on the right or whatever, will either have to find ways to reform policing in this country, or we will be politically irrelevant. Because they're not going to abolish the police. And they're not going to defund the police so much where there won't be any more police, or there'll be very few police on the street. No, it's not going to happen. So we have to find a way. We have to put our heads together as a community to find a way for our police to be able to police us without exacting this type of brutality on our people. And it is important to say that. A lot of black people have taken cases like this, and I saw a lot of this online. There was a case last week where a young black man was killed by the police, and his father killed a random police officer. Not even the one who killed his son, the next day. And I saw a lot of black people applauding that. And I'm just saying, I think that's dangerous ground right there. Most black people don't hate the police. I hate to be the one to tell you that. When Abolish the Police was pulled in the black community at the height of Black Lives Matter and George Floyd, 90% of black people are against it. And plenty of us have cops in our family. And leftists make the argument that cops are class traitors and help uphold the status quo. And all that may be true on some level, but so does everybody who has a job and works for the establishment in some capacity. Okay? Like, you are not going to get people on your side by just going out and murdering random police officers. That is stupid. So I implore people to let cooler heads prevail. I understand that you are frustrated by watching the police seemingly get away with killing black people time and time again, but going out and being crash test dummies and trying to exact revenge on the police, that is dangerous ground. And it is stupid. It's just strategically stupid. And so, as I stated, we have to, as a community, we have to find a way find a solution to this problem. And just as Americans, we have to find a solution to this issue. How can the police without brutalizing whole communities in our society? I talked about this some years ago with the Rev. American police officers only train 500 hours in comparison to 5,000 hours for a lot of the Western European countries that I like to talk about a lot on this show. They have to go to college for 2 or 3 years in order to be cops. Our police officers just have to have a high school diploma. I really do think that if we had more educated, better trained police officers, you would get a higher grade of person who would want to be a police officer or who could be a police officer. Too many Earls and Jethros and Demetriuses go to the police academy just because they ain't got nothing else going on in their lives and end up with a gun and a badge and some power and use that to lord over people that they view as beneath them. And that's a big part of what needs to change. All right, folks, it is 6:38 in the p.m. When we get back, we are going to talk about 2 major anniversaries in American history that are happening this week. One, where our government literally bombed an American city. And 2, where our government showed that they had no regard even for their own children. We'll be right back after these. Here on Straight Out of the Cannon on WLTH 1370 AM, the region's choice, the people's voice. Stay with us.